Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your daily NVIDIA report for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Let's take a look at the charts. It was 4 weeks ago this Friday that we settled above convergent channel structures that were significant in scope. In particular, this descending 4 or 5 month channel top that is now well below the market at 105.32, having closed above it nearly a month ago, did shift our focus back into the bullish column. As we continue into the third quarter, we consider 153.13 a 3 to 5 month objective. Above, well, it really is kind of there's still meaning in 105.32, but we're really focusing now on the speed line that we also closed above last week, really. This seems so long ago, but it really wasn't. A week ago yesterday, we closed above this descending two-thirds speed line after a couple of weeks earlier closing above this area that I'd mentioned just a moment ago. So on the daily chart, you can see the speed line at 120 even. It was the settlement. This is a Monday closing above the speed line that we then indicated within a week or two, 141.30. Up to that point, it should be mentioned that the speed line, presently at 120.67 on the weekly chart, became a 1 to 2 week target following the buy signal above this area here that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So we had a 1 to 2 week target in the low 120s, and we had a 3 to 5 month target at 153.13. And it was the settlement then above the speed line roughly a week later at 120.67 that launched us into yet another buy signal that is expected to yield 141.30 as a 1 to 2 week target. So we're a full week into this secondary buy signal above the 120 even descending two-thirds speed line. 141.30 may be in reach today. We really have this kind of high area, the actual high that was put out last Friday at 136.35 that we're offering as an intraday pivot point. Might actually contain intraday buying pressures. And if we push through or perhaps open above 136.35, we just might reach 141.30 by the closing bell. That would be a pretty big move, but we've seen that over the last week or two. So at the very least, if we close today above 136.35, I would expect the 141.30 rising channel top within 1 to 2 days at the very most. 131.30, well-equipped to contain weekly, possibly buying pressures through the rest of May. And from here, we can fall away back into the 110s, really. This 120 is actually dropping on a daily basis. In fact, I'll show you this chart that once we test or holding below 141.30, we'll keep this narrowing zone channel support rising at 112.06, descending two-thirds speed line at 120 even. They all come together into pretty much a single point later May, this area in reach. Now, I don't consider it an objective yet because we haven't actually technically tested 141.30. Once again, closing today above 136.35 does signal 141.30 within a day or two. But as I said a moment ago, pushing, especially opening today above 136.35, we just might see 141.30 on an intraday basis where we could top out through the rest of May. So 141.30, if you're long, you may be long from 3-4 weeks ago. Maybe you're expecting 153.13. You may consider, scaling out of some of your long position, taking some profits at 141.30, because after we test 141.30, the risk is to the downside. The risk is falling back into the 110s within 2 to 3 weeks of testing 141.30. Or maybe you're a longer term position trader. Maybe you're in there for the long haul, the 3 to 5 month rally to 153.13, and just know that if we were to close above 141.30 later in the week, that 153.13 target is just another week or two away where we could double top on a monthly basis. As I've been saying, our real long-term likelihood is the 171.09 recently formed channel top. I say recently formed because it's based in part on that April low. So if you take a trend line off these extreme lows and project it against this intermediate high from 24, you come up with 171.09. And I do think that this is actually in play by the end of the year. But for all intents and purposes, we're holding to a low 150s objective that would complete the buy signal that occurred almost a month ago above these convergent, now diverging channel structures between 105.32 and 113.30. I think I covered the upside pretty well. Let's talk downside now. 131.21 is a gap closer, and so it can contain intraday selling pressures. You might even bounce here for the day back into the mid 130s, 136.35 within a day or two. We could continue in this congestive two-sided framework for the next couple of days, perhaps. Closing above 136.35 signals 141.30 and climbing within 1 to 2 days. Closing below 131.21 indicates 127.72 tomorrow, where we can place a daily low. And if we close below 127.72, then we should see this, what I consider to be, well, I can't call it a 2 to 3 week target. I may have said that earlier. I really like to see the market test its resistance before you anticipate bearish rotation to meaningful support. So I don't think we're done yet. I think we're going to see, there's a good chance we'll see 140, 130 this week. And once we do, I will then begin anticipating this low 120 level and dropping as a likely 2 to 3 week downside objective. So in terms of the downside, where should you go short on weakness? I think it would be, at this point in time, a settlement below 127.72. 127.72 is a 5/8 upside Fibonacci from the January high against the April low. And we pushed through it in one single day about a week ago, and we haven't looked back. And so it leads me to believe that it is still a valid level for buying and selling against, at least for the time being. 127.72 can contain daily selling pressures. It could be reached intraday if we break 131.21. That is a real possibility. I'm not comfortable playing the short side in this market unless we either A, test 140, 130, and then I think you can play the short side, exit a long position that may have been established a week ago, for instance, above this 120 speed line, or you're playing the short side on weakness. And while I would like to say closing below 130, 121 is that sign, I think the more reliable approach is below 127.72, because I think this should be given the benefit of the doubt in terms of its ability to perhaps contain daily selling pressures and quite possibly into later week. Closing below 127.72 sets up 120 even as a 3 to 5 day target. That is the beginning of a narrowing zone of meaningful mid to longer term support that ends at 112.06. This area converges in a couple of weeks, can absorb selling through the month of June, and from here we can round up again to new highs. Please click like, share, subscribe. Check out wickedstocks.com. The last few weeks we've done stock picks, for instance, on Lockheed Martin, EQT, Wingstop. I could go on and on. We offer 2 a week. We always look for at least 20% moves on those underlying stock picks. If we see a stock, a buy signal that would only avail you a 10% move, we just don't present it. It is the 20% plus move that we're always looking for. We've got a pretty decent batting average on the stock picks over the last year or two. We also offer daily triple Q and daily SPY analysis, weekly Apple stock analysis. You'll be able to see it all by going to wickedstocks.com and taking advantage of that 5-day free trial. I will be back tomorrow with Wednesday's NVIDIA report. You have a great day.